Well, as far as the tracks are concerned, we have to understand railways is almost the lifeline for India. Common people take the railway services to reach from one destination to another. The same railway track which was connecting Bengal, Orissa, and thereafter the rest of the country, that portion of the rail track was completely under siege because of this very tragic accident. And it took almost 51 hours for Indian Railways in coordination with the Army, with the Air Force, state police, and the National Disaster Relief Forces, and of course local people to clear the tracks for free movement of train. If that's the good part of the entire operation, which also indicates that the rescue operation is over, the relief operation is on. But the most important part is the losses. More than 275 people have lost their lives. And as you rightly said, this is one of the worst train tragedies that has happened in history of India. And there are more than 900 people, close to 1,000 people who are still there in the hospital. And few of them reportedly critical. So we have our fingers crossed, we have our hopes and prayers for all the injured people. But then it's a heart-wrenching tale. A train which is meant to ferry one person or people from one destination to another, indicating about a journey. The journey has now stayed incomplete. There were several common people, laborers who were going from one point to another point because of job. And now they neither can come back home nor can actually go to their destination, earn money for their livelihood, for their families. I've been meeting several bereaved families. And while there are a lot of questions as how did this happen? Well, we cannot really confirm at this point how did this happen, because the Railway Board has indicated possibly there could be some issue with signaling. But then the larger investigation has now gone to the Premier Central Bureau of Investigation. That's what being recommended by Indian Railways to understand what went wrong, because you're talking about 3 trains, even though the derailment specifically happened to one train, which is a passenger train starting from Shalimar in Howrah and going to Chennai, which is in down south India.
Yeah.
And, almost 3 hours after it started from its origin point, there had been this tragic incident. And it simply did not ramp into a goods train, but then it led to a derailment. And I've seen it myself. I've been to the spot and I've seen it as how the engine had literally climbed atop the goods train and creating a thrust when got carried forward to the rest of the bogies. It led to derailment. Bogies were literally turtled, mangled, killing so many lives. And there was another train coming from other direction. Derailment of Coromandel Express had also damaged at least 3 bogies of the other train which was passing Coromandel Express from around the same time. So yes, investigation is on. The death toll is more than 270. More than 900 people, close to 1,000, have sustained injuries. Some of them have received treatment, being released, but then there are few who are critical. But the heart-wrenching tale now begins as we start discovering the human suffering of those bereaved families who were waiting for their loved ones to either come back or reach to a destination, but now clueless.
And Tamal, as you pointed out, the investigation is just beginning and we can't jump to conclusions, but I understand the train driver has been spoken to. He says he wasn't speeding, he was obeying the signals. So it does seem as something went catastrophically wrong.
Well, of course, there has to be something catastrophically wrong for this kind of a tragedy of this magnitude to happen. But then the train driver, the pilot, he is saying that he was not over speeding. Now, it's a super fast train. Even it was at a high speed, it is not at fault. It is not his crime. But then something went wrong because the train was supposed to follow us a particular track following the signal. Now, how it rammed the goods train, it's something very bewildering, and it's a question bothering many as what went wrong, how the train, which has been taking the usual track and was following the track according to the signal, how did this happen? So when the driver says that he was not overspeeding and following the signal, essentially is trying to possibly hint that the engine has simply followed the signals as a direction to which track to follow and on which track to stay. Now, yes, there is a larger murmur and also in a way questions being raised. while the track was on, and if there was a little bit of a track which is supposed to connect one track to the other, if there was some fault with that, or if there was a fault with signaling, whatever the case is, it is subject to investigation. We cannot jump into a conclusion.
Sure.
The premier body, which is investigation, has been recommended to probe. But as I said, down on the ground, it's human suffering that you're witnessing.
Which is, and as you said, Tamal, it's the lifeblood of India, taking people to their work to provide for families. What sort of relief do you think is going to come in, particularly for the families of those who have lost people and those who are in hospital trying to sort of return to some form of normality?
Well, so far what we have learned that as far as the deceased are concerned, they specifically hailed from two states. Number one, which is state of West Bengal, because the train was originating from West Bengal, and there were also people from Orissa, which is the neighboring state. Now, as far as the central government is concerned, they have already announced a compensation of 10 lakh rupees for all the deceased, for the next of kin of the deceased, at least 2 lakh for grievously injured people, and about 50,000 for minor injuries. That apart, respective state governments have also announced compensation. For example, we have seen as how state government of West Bengal has announced a compensation of 5 lakh rupees for the next of kin for all the deceased families. Most importantly, it is a crisis that the nation has faced. And at times of crisis, possibly the best side of humanity comes to fore. And that's the reason it's like whole country has come together, simply not relying on the compensation which has been announced by central government and respective governments, state governments, but people have volunteered to come forward and throw open their helping hands in whatever means and ways possible. So there are social activists, there are NGOs, there are common people who have literally opened their heart and trying to give any assistance possible to the bereaved families, to those who need help. Nothing can compensate the human, but then it will possibly give them the assurance that we are there with them.
Indeed. Tamal, just awful times, and as you say, your thoughts and prayers are with you from Australia too. Thanks so much for your time.